I'd like to introduce at this time a former prosecutor, and I have it on very good authority, the top trial lawyer in the entire state of Georgia, Mr. Mo Wiltshire. And he's going to be speaking to us about some of the things he's seeing there on the other side of the country. This is not local to Nevada, folks. Some of the things that are happening all over the country. Mo?
Well, thank you very much. Look, that introduction, you can't really complain about that. I mean, I won't argue with you. I will say this. Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to Mark. That was a very good presentation, and we're in a situation where we're seeing really unprecedented, and to me at least, I mean, I should know better. I've been 26 years. I've been an attorney. I should know better. But to me, unexpected efforts by various government entities to take action in this situation that they just don't have the authority to do. I don't really understand where some of our government officials are deriving the idea that it's up to them to do something, and that something is going to involve efforts to restrict liberties that it's really not their purview. I mean, the scariest thing for government to be up to, in my estimation, is trying to make us safe. Government looking out for you. I mean, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I mean, that's what we've got going on a lot. So let me tell you about what's going on, even in Georgia. Now, you think Georgia, okay, Georgia's a red state, lots of history of support for individual liberties, especially in the Second Amendment area. And all of that is true. And we have a good, strong history of protecting Second Amendment rights. But, look, the last go around, we had a closer governor's race than we should have. We've had a lot of people that aren't native Georgians or from what you would consider to be typical, Georgia households and Georgia worldview move into the state in the metro Atlanta area and, kind of like, don't California my Texas. I mean, we're sort of like, don't New York my Georgia. And we've had a lot of that going on. And I live and work in Athens, Georgia, which in addition to being the most beautiful college town in the country, is also a very liberal, heavily progressive area. It's, the University of Georgia's in Athens. We're roughly, an hour and 15 minutes east of Atlanta. We've got 35 to 40,000 students, depending on how you count them at UGA, and lots of professors from all around the country and lots of folks that move here for those, opportunities that the university provides. We've elected a very progressive slate of county commissioners this last go round. And the county commission back, it's been, several weeks ago now, basically middle of March when all this really got going, the first couple of weeks of March, they started talking about, we need to do something. We got to do something. And this was right after communities in Washington state started passing these shelter-in-place ordinances. And our county commission got together and they floated the idea in an emergency hearing of a shelter-in-place, a curfew ordinance. And they were going to define, essential businesses and so forth. And they basically took the ordinances that had come from out on the West Coast, what we would call the left coast. No offense to people in Nevada. I know y'all are not on the coast, and most of you, the best thing you would prefer that to happen from people out there is not to come to Nevada and ruin Nevada. But we adopted that. The county commission said we're going to try to do that. Now, I mean, I know several of the county commissioners personally. Some of them I don't, but a lot of them I do. They all know who I am. I know who they are. A lot of the local lawyers wrote them letters and said, look, you can't do this. Don't do this. You don't have authority to lock people in their homes, to close their businesses, and to interfere with people's rights. Well, the first time they tabled the issue and came back 3 days later, and they had abandoned the curfew idea and gone on to the shelter-in-place. So they adopted a shelter-in-place ordinance. And one of the things that they failed to do in that ordinance is they failed to follow Georgia state law which in 2017, as a result of some really good efforts by Georgia Carry, which is a firearms rights and advocacy group in Georgia that does really good work and has helped us pass a lot of good 2A supporting laws and firearm friendly laws, we got the State Emergency Powers Act amended to specifically bar the governor or anybody else from restricting access to firearms. Purchase those, ammunition, regulating gun stores, can't do that as part of emergency powers in Georgia. Well, the folks in Athens got together and talking about open meetings for a minute. This was during the early days of coronavirus, and so they were not going to have the public come to the meeting. They were going to practice social distancing, and they were going to do it by email comments and filling out a comment form, and they were going to read all those comments. And they had to really make that available to comply with our state open records or Open Meetings Act. Well, they got to their meeting and they presented evidence of some local doctors and some people, some professors from the university, and all the people that were saying, yeah, absolutely, it's a screaming need to lock down the city right now. They did not read a single comment against the lockdown. They said that we got so many different comments from citizens that we can't read them all. So they just presented the stuff that was in favor of what they wanted to do, which I think is very likely a violation of our state Open Meetings Act. But that's neither here nor there now. They passed this ordinance. In the ordinance, they put a bunch of vague and ambiguous language about who was an essential business and who was not. And they failed to track the state statute on emergency powers language protecting firearms rights. So Clyde Armory, who is the largest by volume firearms retailer east of the Mississippi, their owner, Andrew Clyde, who also happens to be running for Congress in the 9th District as a Republican, called me. I know Andrew. I'm kind of not only a client, the lawyer. I'm also a client. I've spent some money in there for sure. But anyway, what we ended up doing was we challenged the county who passed that ordinance. And I had told them, don't pass this. And they passed it anyway. And we sued them in Superior Court in Athens, which is our county court. And instead of hearing the matter in front of a local judge, they removed us to federal court. And then they passed a bunch of FAQs trying to say that, oh, we always intended gun stores to be there. But we had, people calling Clyde Armory wanting to know, are you open? So the word was out that, the county had decided to interfere with people's Second Amendment rights. So that happened even in Georgia. Now, our governor enacted an emergency power and followed the state law and specifically said, yes, we're going to shelter in place except for essential purposes. We're going to close non-essential businesses. They defined those, but they specifically said, firearms rights, access to firearms, access to training, access to ammunition, that's protected in the governor's emergency powers ordinance. So, that basically eliminated our local ordinance and saved the day for Second Amendment rights. But don't think they won't try. I mean, after our lawsuit was filed, and the county had admitted through their attorneys that they really didn't have any right to regulate firearms. One of the county commissioners was posting on Facebook in the COVID-19 resources group in Athens that was heavily populated with Athens people. One of the county commissioners said, well, currently firearm stores are considered essential, but that's as it was interpreted by staff, and that interpretation is subject to change. It's subject to alteration based on, based on citizen input. So, that's what we were dealing with in Georgia, which I have to tell you, I never expected to see that kind of thing happen. But that absolutely, if the commissioners in Athens had their way, they would absolutely abridge people's firearms rights. And they were not in the least bit concerned about what they had done. And even after we sued them, they still acted like they were going to try to, find a way to do it. Now, as it turns out, their ordinance was thrown out by the governor's order. So our suit was dismissed because the ordinance it was attacking had been thrown out by the governor's executive order and preempted by the governor's executive order. So that's what we were dealing with recently just here. Now, that raises another point. I mean, Second Amendment stuff. I mean, look, we got people in the governor in California and the mayor in Los Angeles are closing gun stores, and they're slugging it out. And they had a district judge in federal court rule that they could do that. Now, I know that's on appeal to the Ninth Circuit, and I expect either the Ninth Circuit or the Supreme Court will address that and hopefully fix that. But that's where we are in this country. We're in this country in a situation where it doesn't really bother us as individuals because we're ready. I mean, I've got firearms already and ammunition already and other things that I need already. And you all, I'm sure, do as well. And all of our friends and people that we have influence with do. But, a lot of folks realized, hey, this is bad. I don't know how long this is going to go on. I'd like to have a firearm, and then they show up to get a firearm. And in California, in addition to all the other fiery hoops you got to jump through, now they're saying they want the stores closed because they're not essential. So this is a real fight in our lifetime going on right now. Not magazine bans, not not assault rifle nonsense. This is any kind of firearms, access to stores selling ammunition. People are really trying to act like that's not an essential safety need to have access to firearms and ammunition. That's a sad day for the country. I mean, it's just a sad day for the country. And we need to be as vigilant as we possibly can. And, here's the thing, too. Mark kind of touched on this earlier, but the liberals, where are they in this? Why aren't they attacking this shelter in place stuff that's going on? I don't see much authority for it, frankly. There's lots of federal rules that pertain to the quarantine of folks. And you can look online. I've got, I'll be happy to share this with anybody that's interested. I've posted it on Facebook and some other places. The CDC's justification for their quarantine for people traveling from the province in China where Wuhan is, Hubei or whatever that is, coming back. I mean, their legal authority addresses that they have specific knowledge that they're either infected or have been exposed to the contagion. Now, all of us now that are sitting in our homes or our offices or wherever we are, what evidence is there that we've been exposed to or infected by the contagion? And yet we're all under some form, almost all of us are under some form of shelter in place, state law or local ordinance or some combination of those things. What evidence is there that we've been exposed to the contagion? I don't see any. And I think if the government is allowed to make the step that they've made, it's not just our Second Amendment rights that are in trouble. I think we're looking at a real crisis. If they get away with this, what are they going to do next time? As always, it's for the children. And this time we don't even have kids really at risk based on how this virus works, what we know about it. And they're still doing this. So it scares me. It offends me. It makes me angry. And it makes me want to do something about it. And, we did something here and it worked for us, but we're still, the shelter in place stuff, like I said, if they can do that, I mean, what are they going to do next time? I mean, what's to stop them from saying, we had a real bad flu season last year and we want to stop that this year. So we want, 3 weeks of everybody stay home. What if they say this for Second Amendment purposes? What if they say in a city like Chicago or Los Angeles, or name whichever city you think they might try this? They say, well, we're not going to regulate your firearms. We're not going to regulate your ammunition. The Supreme Court says we can't do that. You got that pesky Second Amendment. We're going to impose a shelter-in-place ordinance for 30 days during the summer when we have all these shootings because this epidemic of gun violence has gotten so bad. What if they try that? If they can get away with that on this, coronavirus, what is going to stop them from expanding? And as we know, the history of government is not the history of the advance of liberty. It's the history of consolidation of power. Jefferson warned us about it. Franklin warned us about it. Eisenhower warned us about it in another form. And it's real and it's here. And, we've got to leave a nation for our kids and grandkids that we can be proud of. So that's our challenge. So, that's my thoughts on it. I'm really worried and scared to death of what my government is up to. I'm not happy about it at all. And I want everybody to wake up like we all have. Wake up and start letting the government know we don't want to put up with it. we're not happy about it, and that liberty matters. And we haven't touched on what it means to be a small business owner in this time. But if they can do that to your basic Second, First Amendment rights, what can they do to your property rights? So this, to me, is a huge deal, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all. Just because I'm talking to everybody that will give me 5 seconds, that will listen to me, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, and that's where usually our best sermons are. But I mean, I'm glad y'all are involved with this and speaking out against it, and I applaud you for it. Appreciate the chance to speak with you.
Well, Mo, thank you so very much for joining us. And I agree with you. Quarantining people restricting the movements of people that are sick is called quarantine. Yep. Restricting people that are not sick is called tyranny. I see that Coates has his hand up. Hang on a second. I'm not able to unmute you there, Coates.
There we go.
There we go.
Do you think, Mo, that the best approach is a reasonable accommodation approach to defending our rights?
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. I mean, the governor here in Georgia that has passed our statewide shelter-in-place, law or order, he's a personal friend. I mean, I've known Brian Kemp for years. He's a good guy. I mean, when I was running for district attorney, we were standing on the same street corners waving signs at, motorists coming back from the Georgia-Florida game, which is a big thing local politicians will do. So, I mean, I know him. I know his family. I know he's really struggled with this decision. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that we should be reasonable. I think we need to be painfully aware of marketing during this period. We got lots of new gun owners that are going to be on our side if we'll help them. But if we're jerks about it, then we're going to have problems. So marketing during this time is very important. Now, having said that, people need to understand that, what we're talking about is not just, theoretical stuff. I mean, this is stuff that our forefathers fought and died for. And, we've got to care about it. So reasonable accommodation, I mean, the answer to that is maybe, maybe. Where should we pick our fights? And to me, quarantining healthy people is something that, we need to call out and raise awareness of. I just don't think it's not something that doesn't need to be called into question. I mean, I've been doing this over and over, saying that, I'm personally fine with following the CDC guidelines, and I want to be safe, and I don't want people to get sick. But I also don't want the government telling me what to do to this extent. I mean, in the name of safety, it's scary.
I see that John has his hand up. Stand by, John. Go ahead with your question, John. Hello, John. Well, apparently we lost John. Did anybody else have a question for Mo? Hang on, Monica. Go ahead, Monica, with your question.
Mo, thank you so much for doing this for us today. I'm a local talk show host, conservative, of course, and multiple firearms. But can you read the chat that's going along on this conversation? Because
yeah, I can see some of it.
A number of people, and especially this is the call that I get on the air, is what can the average person, what can the average citizen do at this point? We all feel, I think, individually as single voices, and we don't want to put ourselves out. Well, not me, but people don't want to put themselves out there. What can they do?
Well, there's no doubt it takes courage to speak up when the herd mentality is running the other way. I mean, look, I had friends of mine tell me, well, you don't need to file that lawsuit against the county. I mean, you're going to get some pushback. And, my personal opinion is lawyers that won't take on, difficult clients and difficult cases and stand up for people are worthless and ought to turn in their law license. Now, as far as citizens, I mean, that kind of goes for citizens too. We can be nice, we can be polite, but we need to, let your local elected officials know, let your, state officials know, your state reps, whoever know where you stand on it. And you can do that politely, and you can do it without, nobody wants to be, dismissed as a kook. So we need to be careful with our marketing. But yeah, you can let your voice be heard and say you're concerned about it. I think now the thing for us to do is to make them turn loose of this power as quick as we can, especially as they revise the model every day about how serious this is. They're crushing businesses, and we need to start asking them now, hey, guys, we need an exit strategy for this. We got to stop. Let us go back to work.
Unfortunately, here in Northern Nevada, I don't know if it's Nevada as the whole, but in Northern Nevada, we have, and no offense to the profession, but we have gutless attorneys. We have no lawyers that will come forward and help in lawsuits, whether it's against the city, the county, the state. I mean, it's just a mess. Do we have any recourse to find other law organizations that will help us?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, you can have lawyers appear, out of state on kind of a pro hoc or temporary basis. I don't know what the rules are in Monica or in Nevada about it. I do know that a worthless lawyer is really worthless. I mean, if a lawyer won't stand up for somebody's rights, then they're awful. Well, I mean, somebody just popped up with a question: do you have to be an attorney to file a lawsuit? Again, I doubt that you have to, but it damn sure is helpful if you want to win the lawsuit.
It takes
and even if like Mark was talking about earlier, if you got a lawsuit that's a good cause and you might lose anyway, you still need an attorney that knows what they're doing, that's worth the damn in court, to have a chance to advance your cause effectively. What you don't want is a bunch of yahoos running to court with no chance of even knowing what they're doing. Yeah. So, the fact that y'all have lawyers that won't help, I mean, you've tried to hire lawyers and they still won't help, or you trying to talk about lawyers that won't work for free?
Well, we're trying to get lawyers just to give advice. Like we have a recall petition going, and when it all started, just to give some advice and make sure everything's like, we could not get anyone in law to come forward and help.
Well, recall petitions are tough because most of the time you lose recall petitions. They're hard to win. So lawyers that are looking at that are probably thinking, well, this has got no chance, so I don't want to do it. But look, if you try to hire lawyers and you can't get them to work, then I'm really surprised and disgusted to hear that, because that they've
well, we're all citizens. We don't have any money to hire. It's just, we're looking for help from the
raise money. Well, now that's a whole different deal now. I mean, I've got a lot of sympathy for lawyers that say, look, pro bono is great, but I can't pay my staff with pro bono cases. I can't feed my family with pro bono cases. I mean, I do. Well, I tell you what I do. I do, some pro bono work, but most of the stuff that I would do would be reduced fee, because I'm a firm believer that paying for stuff helps you be invested in it. So why don't y'all do a GoFundMe and raise you some money and hire a lawyer? And if you still won't have lawyers I find it hard. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a lawyer in California, can you? Some of those have got to have Nevada licenses. I mean, you ought to be able, if you can't trap a lawyer into taking a case with a fee, I'll be very surprised.
Bruce, question.
Monica. Carol, you're on. Ask your question.
Actually, I wanted Jeff to talk, so it has to do with, I hope, what Jeff is going to talk about, and that is the city council meeting on Monday, where they're going to be deciding what to do about further, whether or not they should further retain us or detain us or incarcerate us or whatever you want to call what we're doing, sheltering in place.
Right.
Jeff, can you take it from here?
I was going to ask Mo about the hodgepodge, actually, of mayors, city councils, sheriffs. Every time you go across a border, you have a new rule, and they're made by mayors without even legislative council approval. But yes, our city council meets the 13th at 10 a.m. to discuss exactly what Carol said, and we're not allowed to be there, nor are we allowed to do input on the day of the meeting. But Mo, did you want to address the hodgepodge of, 3 different city limits, 3 different rules?
Yeah, look, and that's just terrible. It's really the poster child for bad government. And I think that's one of the reasons, because we had that going on in Georgia. That's one of the reasons why our governor had to step in and do something. Is we had, I mean, Athens had an ordinance. The next door county had an ordinance. One county over had an ordinance, and those all three were different. So you literally could not drive down Highway 316 in Georgia without running through 3 or 4 different rules that applied in 30 miles. So, you know, if y'all are dealing with that, then I would definitely say you need to get your, I mean, does your governor have any chance to fix that? At least get everybody on the same sheet of music. I mean,
Our governor would not do anything like that.
yeah, well, to me, that is a classic case of what happens when local government, you know, grab for power that they shouldn't have and don't have by passing all these patchwork. You know, in Georgia, the County Municipal Authorities Association sent out a blast email urging all 138 municipalities in the state to adopt a model ordinance, and they included the model ordinance, and they still had, you know, 138 different versions that everybody wants to tweak and put their stamp on because they're all local and they all know what's best for their people. So, you know, that's a nightmare as far as how you fix it in Nevada. If you can't get the state to step up and do something, I mean, that's what one of the things I would focus on is trying to put some pressure on the state to do something to fix this ridiculous deal where you can't ride from one county to the other and take your elderly, you know, shut-in parents a milk crate full of food without violating 2 or 3 different local ordinances. That's just garbage.
Any,
that's not much help.
any federal court, Mo? You think federal court, or you just?
Well, federal, you know, here's the thing with federal court. It depends on which judge you get. I mean, you know, there's some really, really good federal judges, and there's some federal judges that aren't so good, and you don't know how you're going to be assigned. The problem with federal judges is, you know, if they don't deem it to be worthy of their time to fix something, then especially in this situation, they don't have to have a hearing. I mean, when we got removed to federal court in our case, for example, I mean, we were going to have a hearing in May. And, you know, a hearing in May would have been the entire month of April before the governor acted, you know, April 2nd or 3rd to fix the problem and preempt the local law. We would have been the entire month of April traveling under this local ordinance that they were constantly amending with FAQs. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you can't, I would, you know, and I can't speak to, again, I'm speaking to my opinion about what's doing Nevada law is worth what you're paying for it right now. Okay. So, I mean, if you can get in front of a local judge, the local judge is going to be sensitive to local problems. And I've just got a message from my phone that tells me that I've got 5% battery left. So if I hang up on y'all, it's not because I got tired of talking to you.
Well, Mo, thank you so very much for joining us and for all of the information. Folks, we have a lot of candidates that have joined the meeting tonight, and I would like to have at least a couple of minutes for them to at least take a minute or two and tell us where you're at with what you're doing. But most importantly, especially after everything we heard tonight, I hope that these folks are paying attention to the fact that we are paying attention. So I saw, there he is. We're going to start with Dave Williams. I can't unmute you, Dave. There you go.
Can you hear me all right?
Barely hear you, Dave.
Is this any better?
A little bit.
Well, that's a drag. Shoot. Well, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. You hear that?
Yes, sir.
Come back to me.
All righty. Jeff, I know that you're running for a seat on our school board, Can you tell us where you're at with that?
Yep, I'll be brief. I'm running for school board down in South Reno. If I can say one thing, no matter where you live in Washoe County, no incumbents. That's the bottom line. We need change. School districts dysfunctional. Please, no incumbents. Vote for people that are fiscally conservative. At the at-large position, you've actually got 4 good candidates, so consider that. But that's the bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Sandra, I see you've joined us also. Where are you at with your campaign?
Oh, I'm busy as ever. So I've been hitting I've hit a lot of areas in where I live in Wingfield Springs, and so now I'm hitting a lot of areas instead. And my signs I probably have 80 signs now up on the sides of freeways, everywhere that I could actually put them. I have been talking to people from a distance. I have to do what I have to get my name recognition. So I have been talking to people at about 15, 20 feet. It's a good thing my voice is loud. I've been just letting him know, brings up a good point about, speaking out. We have all of citizens that want to speak out about this and do something. But I see the legislature is really quiet, and I really can't understand why that is. We have Republicans on the legislature right now that I hear nothing about what's going on, nothing with this situation. So I don't plan to be one of them. I will fight for us, and I'll be a voice, because this is unacceptable what's going on to me right now. So I'm working hard at it. I have some videos being made by a team right now that hopefully be released in 2-3 weeks. So yeah, I'm really excited, just moving forward and trying to get votes and signs up.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Sandra. For whatever it's worth, folks, we're working on getting a Meet the Candidate segment to the Nevada Patriot website. And I'm going to be interviewing some of the folks that you see here tonight, and we'll be adding that to our website. I see that we also have Paul White in the room. Paul, would you like to tell us where you're at with your campaign, please?
Yeah, sure, Bruce. And everybody, I'm running in at large District G. The only thing wrong with the school board and the schools is that it's like if the AMA was run by somebody who'd never had a patient, or the FAA was run by somebody who'd never flown a plane. There's not anybody on the school board, there's not anybody in my district running who's got 1 second of experience in doing what needs to be done, and that's turning our schools around. I've done it personally for 26 years. Personally, safe schools have got nothing to do with keeping them safe from the outside. It's keeping them from being crazed on the inside. We did a survey, said 2/3 of the teachers came back in our survey responses said they'd either been assaulted by or knew a teacher who had been assaulted by kids. So it's a basic. The kids don't come every day. They don't come on time. They don't behave, and they don't work. They're not held accountable, and the teachers are threatened with their jobs if they try to do that. And it's just, you have to have done it. Turned around budgets and schools and behaviors. They've got to drug test them. All the conversation going on with the school board election is about stuff that is so peripheral, it's almost ridiculous. You have to have done it. You have to know how to turn schools around. I do. Hopefully we can get the message out.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. I'm going to unmute Carol here. This meeting tonight was a collaboration between a bunch of folks. Paul White with Stronghold Institute, of course, Carol Feinberg with the Conservative Talk Lunch, Jeff Church with Reno Tax Revolt, and one of our biggest supporters for all these organizations, of course, Monica J. Carol, I'd like to hear a couple of your thoughts on what we discussed tonight.
I thought it was all really, really, really good information. food for thought. And I thought especially interesting was the group chat that was happening over here in the right-hand corner. I just wanted to mention Greg Shannon had to leave. He is a candidate for a judge. I can't remember whether it's 11 or 13. I get those both mixed up, what department, but he is the only conservative running in a three-man race. So it's important to support him. And he was here until just a minute or two ago. So I'm very sorry that he had to go before you started introducing candidates. That's one thing. The second thing is thank you so much to Mo Wiltshire and to Mark Randazza, that fabulous speakers. Wonderful, wonderful. It's so good to know we have people across the country who think like we do and can bring it home when we need it. So I want to reiterate about the meeting on the 13th at the City Council. You cannot talk at the 10 o'clock meeting. It is a closed meeting against open meeting law, but we can send in comments, phone in comments, write in comments to our City Council members now, all the way up till 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. And they need to hear from us. They're ready to impose martial law in our city, and it's unfair. It's unfortunate, and we really need to stop that. So let them know how we think. That's what I had to say.
I don't mean to be like tacky or rude, but should we get together in person right now at that meeting before they do impose martial law? Like, I hear we're trying to go through these channels, but they're saying that they don't care about, you know, like the First Amendment doesn't mean anything to Sisolak. The Second Amendment doesn't mean anything to Sisolak. Does the Fourth Amendment or the 10th Amendment mean anything to him? So like, at what point do we just say, we're not going to do this anymore? And we show up at that meeting and say, you don't get to make decisions for we the people behind closed doors on our dime. We pay for your position, right? Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be overly angry, but I'm really, really worked up over this, guys.
Well, Sisolak has nothing to do with the Reno City Council. This is about the Reno City Council.
But he's the one who's given all of these orders that say you have to stay home, you have to stay home. He's the one who would call in the big guns, so to speak, and he already has. The big guns are coming, and they're supposedly to help with the medical thing. What in the world is a gun and a National Guard going to do to save somebody's life who can't breathe when he's put on lockdown the one effective treatment that we have, aside from vitamin C and just taking care of yourself?
Bruce, can I comment?
Yes, please.
You know, I hate to say it, but the lady's got a good point. I'm not sure on the 13th, but there comes a point where maybe we need to mask up, have social distancing, but show up at City Hall. You know, mask, we'll let them threaten to arrest us because, again, they're violating the Constitution, they're violating open meeting law. And if you call the school district for their meetings, you can chime in right up during the meeting. But the city of Reno, you have to submit at 4 o'clock the day before. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. For those of you that are not aware, Jeff is also a candidate for a school board position. How's your campaign going, Jeff?
I don't want to harp on that too much tonight, but it's fine. And if you're down south, you'll see me on the ballot. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Monica, what do you think about what we put out tonight?
I think it was great. I think I'm with her. You know, let's get passionate. Unfortunately, at 10 o'clock, I'm on the air, and so I can't go show up any place. But until we are at the point where martial law has been instilled, I think we need to show our numbers, and we need to put on our masks, and we need to go out to these places and say, we are not going to stand for this. We do not have the numbers of coronavirus here. In Story County, there is not one person who is even been tested positive for the coronavirus. In the Quad counties, their numbers are only 26. I don't mean to downplay anybody's death. Death is always tragic. But 10 deaths in Washoe County is not something to kill our economy and shut our entire way of life down and remove our constitutional rights from us. I'm sorry, we have more deaths than that in traffic accidents and obesity and cancer. Our hospitals are not overwhelmed. There are locations that are empty. This isn't right. And until we go out and say something and show force together, nothing's going to change.
I totally and 100% agree with you. Well, folks, thank you all for joining us this evening. I'd like to thank both of our guests, Mark Randazza and Mo Wiltshire. Really appreciate them coming on. Here's to them. For all you candidates, be advised, I'll be contacting you and see if we can't set up a one-on-one interview so we can include it on our website. I also want to thank Carol and Paul and Jeff and of course Monica. Folks, please join us next week at 6 o'clock. The topic of next week's meeting is going to be the silence of our representatives and why. I hope you'll join us. Thank
Is
you all for
anybody
being
going to start a GoFundMe page for legal fees?
We are going to discuss that also.
All right, let's let's GoFundMe.
Thank you all so much for being here, folks, and I hope to see you next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.